Something is wrong.
Hold on to us, always.
I went there once. What if it was our daughter?
No, 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 no. How can I have faith with everything that's about to come?
The ridge is burning, the letters are arriving, and Jamie Fraser wakes up knowing something is terribly, irreversibly wrong. Episode 7 of Outlander Season 8 isn't just another chapter. It's the moment everything the Frasers built, everything they bled for, everything they sacrificed across centuries of love and war, begins to collapse from the inside out. This is evidence of things not seen, and what you're about to witness will shatter you. For years, Fraser's Ridge stood as more than just a piece of land carved out of the American wilderness. It was a promise. A sanctuary built on sacrifice, on blood, on a love so fierce it defied time itself. Jamie and Claire Fraser didn't just build a home on that ridge. They built an identity, a community, a reason to keep fighting when the world outside offered nothing but chaos and destruction. Through wars and plagues, through loss and betrayal, through the kind of pain that would have broken lesser souls into pieces, they held on. They always held on. Because the ridge was theirs, because the people on it were theirs, because everything they had survived together had led them to that place, that moment, that life. And for a brief, beautiful stretch of time, it almost felt like enough. It almost felt like peace. But episode 7 of Outlander Season 8 opens with a single, devastating image that tells you, in no uncertain terms, that peace is over. Jamie Fraser wakes up in the dark, and something inside him shifts. Not a sound, not a movement, just a gut-wrenching, bone-deep intuition that something is wrong. And Jamie Fraser's instincts have never once been mistaken. Not on a battlefield, not in a dungeon, not in the darkest corners of a century that wasn't even his own. When Jamie Fraser feels something is wrong, you listen, you run, you prepare for the worst, because the worst is already on its way. What makes this opening so deeply unsettling isn't the flames, or the screaming, or the chaos that follows. It's the silence before all of it. It's Jamie lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of something he cannot name pressing down on his chest like a stone. This is a man who has faced British redcoats, survived Culloden, endured torture at the hands of men who wanted to break him completely. He has looked death in the eye so many times that death has started to feel familiar. But this nameless dread that greets him before the sun even rises, this is different. This is the kind of fear that doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. And that is always, always so much worse. Because you cannot fight what you cannot see. You cannot protect your family from a threat that moves in the shadows, that slips through the cracks of a community built on trust, that disguises itself as a letter left on a doorstep in the dead of night. The Revolutionary War is raging beyond the borders of the Ridge, yes. The drums of conflict are growing louder with every passing episode, yes. But episode 7 makes it horrifyingly clear that the most dangerous enemy the Frasers face is not standing on a distant battlefield. It is standing right outside their door. It has already crossed the threshold, and it knows exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. The threatening letters arrive like a slow poison. There is no single explosive moment of confrontation, no army marching up the hill, no direct challenge thrown at Jamie's feet. Instead, it is quiet, calculated, designed with chilling precision to dismantle the Frasers not through force, but through fear. Whoever is behind these letters understands something that most of Jamie's enemies never did. That you don't defeat a man like Jamie Fraser by attacking him head-on. You attack the things he loves. You attack the people he has sworn to protect. You make him feel helpless in the one place in the world where he was supposed to be untouchable. And as those letters pile up, as the words on the page cut deeper than any blade ever could, you watch Jamie Fraser, the man, the legend, the warrior who has never broken, begin to crack under the weight of something he cannot simply fight his way out of. The psychological warfare being waged against the Frasers in episode 7 is arguably the most terrifying thing this show has ever done. Because it mirrors something real, something human. The fear of losing not just your life, but everything your life was built around. Claire feels it too. From the very first scene, there is something in her eyes, a trembling, fragile quality that we have not seen in years. Claire Beauchamp Fraser is one of the most resilient characters ever put on screen. She has survived rape, war, the loss of a child, decades of separation from the man she loves, and a journey through time that would have destroyed anyone else. She is not a woman who breaks easily. She is not a woman who asks for help easily. But in episode 7, she reaches for Jamie with a desperation that is almost unbearable to watch, and she whispers words that cut straight to the heart of everything this show has ever been about. Hold on to us always. 4 words, and in those 4 words, an entire world of terror. Because if Claire Fraser is asking to be held, if Claire Fraser is the one who needs to be anchored, then you absolutely know, that what is coming is something neither of them can face alone. The foundation of Fraser's Ridge is not just cracking, it is beginning to crumble. And episode 7 is only the beginning of the collapse. What the show does brilliantly in this opening stretch is force the audience to feel the same creeping, suffocating dread that the Frasers are feeling. There are no easy answers here. There is no enemy you can point to and say, "There, that is the threat, eliminate it and everything will be fine." The threat is everywhere and nowhere at once. It is in the faces of neighbors who used to be friends. It is in the silence of a community that used to speak with one voice. It is in the smoke that begins to rise on the horizon, slow at first, almost gentle, the kind of smoke that makes you think maybe it's just a fire someone lit to keep warm on a cold night. And then the screaming starts. And then the printing shop, that symbol of everything Jamie stood for, everything he believed in, every word he ever put to paper in the name of freedom and truth, is consumed by fire. And you realize with a sickening lurch in your stomach that this is not a warning. This is a declaration of war. Not the war being fought in the valleys and fields beyond the ridge. A personal war. An intimate war. A war designed to erase Jamie Fraser not from history, but from his own home. The burning printing shop is not an accident. Let that sink in for a moment. In a world where fire is the great equalizer, where a single torch can undo years of labor in a matter of minutes, the destruction of Jamie Fraser's printing shop is not a random act of violence carried out by desperate men in desperate times. It is a message, carefully chosen, deliberately executed, aimed at the very core of who Jamie Fraser is and what he stands for. Because that printing shop was never just a building. It was never just wood and ink and paper and machinery. It was Jamie's voice in a world that had spent decades trying to silence him. It was the physical proof that a man who had once been stripped of everything, his land, his freedom, his dignity, his name, had rebuilt himself into something powerful enough to matter. Every pamphlet that came off that press, every word that traveled from the ridge into the hands of colonists fighting for their freedom, carried Jamie's fingerprints, carried his conviction, carried the unshakable belief that truth, put into writing, could change the course of history. And now, it is ash. And the man who did this, whoever he is, wherever he is hiding, knew exactly what he was destroying. He wasn't just burning a building, he was trying to burn Jamie Fraser's sense of purpose down to nothing. The community reaction to the fire tells you everything you need to know about how far things have deteriorated at Fraser's Ridge. This was once a place where people looked out for each other, where neighbors showed up without being asked, where the bond between families was strong enough to survive the kind of hardships that would have torn lesser communities apart. That community still exists, technically. The people are still there, the houses are still standing, but something has shifted beneath the surface, something invisible and corrosive that has been eating away at the trust and solidarity that once defined the ridge. And the fire brings it all into the open. Because when the printing shop burns, not everyone comes running to help. Not everyone stands shoulder to shoulder with the Frasers in their moment of crisis. Some people watch from a distance. Some people look away. And some, the most chilling ones, don't look away at all. They watch with a cold, quiet satisfaction that tells you they knew this was coming. That maybe they were part of making it happen. The fracture lines that have been building all season finally crack wide open in the smoke and heat of that burning building. And what is revealed underneath is ugly and raw and deeply human. Fear turns people inward. Threat turns neighbors into strangers. And strangers, in a world already soaked in conflict and suspicion, can become enemies faster than you ever thought possible. And then there is the woman screaming. That voice, raw, furious, cutting through the noise of the chaos like a blade, shouting those words that land like a physical blow. Tell your husband no more rubbish. Stop for a second and really hear what is being said in that moment. Not just the words themselves, but everything beneath them. The entitlement, the venom, the absolute conviction that Jamie Fraser's voice, his opinions, his principles, his willingness to stand up and be counted on the wrong side of history for the right reasons, is nothing more than rubbish to be silenced. This is not a military adversary. This is not a soldier or a strategist or even a politician with power and resources behind him. This is a neighbor. This is someone who has lived within shouting distance of the Frasers, who has perhaps broken bread with them, who has watched their children grow and their community flourish, and who has decided, in the crucible of revolutionary conflict, that Jamie Fraser is the enemy, that his words are dangerous, that his press must burn, and she is screaming it in the open, in front of everyone, with no shame and no hesitation, because she knows she is not alone, because the tide has turned, because Fraser's Ridge, which was once Jamie's kingdom, is no longer entirely his. This is the moment where Episode 7 shifts from being a story about external conflict to being something far more personal and far more devastating. The Revolutionary War is everywhere. In the news, in the politics, in the distant sounds of musket fire that drift across the mountains on quiet nights. But wars, even terrible ones, have a certain abstract quality when they are being fought somewhere else, by other people, on other ground. You can believe in a cause and still feel safely removed from its worst consequences. What Episode 7 strips away, brutally, efficiently, without a single moment of mercy, is that sense of removal. The war is no longer somewhere else. It is here. It is in the letters on the doorstep. It is in the screaming woman's voice. It is in the ash and smoke where the printing shop used to stand. It is in the eyes of people Jamie has known for years, people he trusted, people he thought he understood. The Frasers are no longer watching history happen from a position of relative safety. They are inside it now, surrounded by it, and the exits are closing fast. But nothing, not the fire, not the letters, not the screaming woman, not the fracturing community, nothing in this episode hits harder than the moment Jamie asks the question that reveals the true depth of what he is carrying inside. What if it was her daughter? Delivered quietly, almost to himself, the kind of question a man asks when he has been turning something over in his mind for so long that it has worn grooves into his thinking, when the fear has become so specific and so sharp that it has a name and a face attached to it. Because Jamie Fraser is not just a leader under attack. He is not just a husband trying to protect his wife, or a patriarch trying to hold his community together. He is a father. And whatever connection is being drawn between the current violence at the Ridge and the safety of a daughter, whether it is Brianna directly or the echoes of what could happen to any child caught in the crossfire of this conflict, it transforms everything. It takes the political and makes it visceral. It takes the historical and makes it unbearably present. A man can absorb a great deal of pain when it falls on him alone, but the thought of that pain reaching the people he loves most, the people he would die 1,000 deaths to protect, that is the thing that breaks through every wall he has ever built around himself. That is the thing that makes Jamie Fraser afraid in a way that no battlefield ever could. Faith is a strange and fragile thing. It does not announce itself loudly. It does not come with guarantees or proof or any of the logical scaffolding that rational minds demand before committing to a belief. Faith is quiet. Faith is stubborn. Faith is the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning when every single piece of evidence in front of you is screaming that there is no point, that the fight is already lost, that the darkness has won and the light was never real to begin with. Claire Fraser has lived her entire extraordinary life on faith. Faith that love was worth the sacrifice of everything she knew. Faith that the future she had glimpsed could be shaped and redirected by the choices she made in the past. Faith that Jamie would find her, that she would find him, that across centuries and battlefields and the impossible physics of time itself, they would always find their way back to each other. That faith has been tested before, brutally, repeatedly, in ways that would have extinguished a lesser flame completely. But it has never broken, not entirely, not all the way down to the root, until now. Until Episode 7 puts Claire Fraser in front of a burning horizon and asks her the one question she has no answer for. How can I have faith with everything that is about to come? And in that single sentence, delivered with a trembling voice and eyes that have seen too much and carried too much and lost too much, the entire emotional architecture of Outlander Season 8 comes into devastating focus. Because Claire is not just talking about the fire. She is not just talking about the letters or the screaming neighbor or the fracturing community or even the war that is closing in from every direction. She is talking about something much larger and much darker than any of those things. Claire Fraser is a woman who came from the future. She knows things that no one around her knows. She has seen how this war ends. She has seen the cost of it, the staggering, incomprehensible human cost, in a way that no one living through it in real time could possibly understand. And that knowledge, which should perhaps be a comfort, which should perhaps give her an advantage that softens the blow of what is coming, has instead become its own particular kind of torture. Because knowing the future does not mean you can stop it. Knowing that people will suffer does not mean you can prevent the suffering. Knowing that the world on the other side of this war will look different, will be better in ways that matter, does not make it any easier to watch the people you love walk toward the fire with their eyes open. Claire Fraser is not losing her faith because she has stopped believing in love or in Jamie or in the possibility of a better world. She is losing her faith because she is drowning in the gap between what she knows and what she can do. And that gap, in episode 7, has never felt wider. What the show understands, and what makes this particular storyline so emotionally precise, is that faith and doubt are not opposites. They are partners. They have always traveled together, bound to each other in a relationship so intimate